I want to walk you through the design process when we're looking at someone's kitchen to remodel. What questions we're asking, how we draw the drawings for the as-built, and what information we need to put a design together. The first part of this process is some questions about your project. We do like to find out how long you've been in your home. This is a good question for, are you just buying the house? Are you renovating to live here? Or possibly you've been here a long time, you're getting the house ready to be sold. These are good questions to find out the type of materials that we're going to be putting into your project. Okay, after we've completed the interview process for finding out why you're wanting to do your project and information about the house in general, we then get into more detail about your specific products for your project. We have questions like type of cabinetry, door styles, finish, and basically it's not very complicated or detailed. We just want to know, do you want wood tones or a painted cabinet? Would you like quartz countertop or granite? Were you looking and thinking about a tile backsplash or maybe a full height backsplash? These questions help us put a design together later in the process. A very important part of this process is what we call as-built drawings. I'm going to start with the longest wall measurement in the kitchen so that I have like a baseline to work all my measurements off of. Okay, in this particular kitchen, this is the longest wall. So we've got a measurement of 247 inches. I like to put everything in inches because our design program's called 2020. That is all in inches. And to do foot and inch measurements, we would have to convert it over to that. So starting with the longest wall and putting all my measurements in inches. This is called a drawing triangle. And this is really a key to my drawings, is using these templates that are on here. Picking out the scale that will fit best onto this graph paper. We're going to use this 1/2 inch scale that's up here. We're going to find the 247 inch mark on here and then just align it on the graph paper. Okay, the next step, I want to get my 2 right angles or as many right angles to the long wall as possible. So we're just going to take this measurement across here. That measurement's 92 inches. We're going to transfer it over to our pad. Okay, the next part that I'm going to do is kind of establish both sides of the wall. Just easier to visualize where the walls are instead of just having lines. I see a lot of people when they start out doing drawings, they turn their numbers as they go around the plans. You always want to have your measurements all facing the same way. So basically this is the bottom of the drawing. This is the top. So we always want to have our measurements coming around and where you can just look at them always facing the same direction. The last measurement here we're going to take is coming back on this outside corner. A lot of times I'll just put a line on there and then go take the measurement. Okay, sometimes we have a wall and the cabinet's in the way. So we're basically just going to measure from the wall to the cabinet and then add 24 inches for the depth of the cabinet. Always make sure that is the depth that's on here. So I'm going to check that measurement now, but generally cabinets are 18, 21, 24, and you would need to add that measurement to the open measurement that you just completed. That measurement's 18 inches. So we're going to add the 118 to 18 and get our overall measurements there for that wall. Basically, we always want to measure how far out of the corner. Like that one was 6 inches, and then that's a 30-inch window. Okay, the reason we're measuring all these windows, we may not be thinking we're going to put cabinets in that location, but when we're in the design phase, we don't know where the best things may be located in the future. So we want to put all of our windows and doors in so that we know where things are located, where cabinets can go and where they can't go, where natural walkways are, You don't want to have cabinetry right up to a window, and then you can't walk in front of it and open the window, maybe for future seating. So it's very important to measure all the windows and doors in a space. That way you can get the overall flow of the design. Okay, so one of the things I like to do when I take the measurements, it's pretty easy to forget them. So I write them down up here. We're 26 inches out of the corner for this window. And the window is 84 inches long. Okay, another thing to remember is measuring what we call off finished floor. We want to measure from the floor to the window sill for your windows. That way we can tell if a cabinet can go up against the window because it's higher than a typical countertop, or if it's too low and we can't put anything against that area. Okay, when we're measuring the windows, we want to assign a window like an A, B, C, or a door as an opening. And then we'll list off to the side window A, and we can put all the measurements of the window on there, the width, the height, and also how far off the floor it is. Okay, so here we have the width of the window and the height of the window, and that's all window A. And then we just keep assigning different letters to each one. All right, here we have the door. We're going to locate that in this space also. Again, how far off the corner we are, the size of the door. And then we also want to put the swing of the door. That's basically how is the door opening or closing. That information is important because if a door is swinging into the room or out of the room, we may have a walkway or it may hit into a cabinet or something if we're trying to locate cabinetry in this area. The next important step is to figure out where your appliances are and your sink location, dishwasher, disposal, making notes of where things are and the sizes of those units. Okay, so the next thing I do usually is put in 24 inches like a baseline. This will just establish where the outside edge of all the cabinetry is going to be. We always use a pencil because we can erase it, but pretty important to get an idea of where all your cabinets are going to begin with. Then we start locating where your appliances are laid out on this diagram. Okay, so here we have our range. It's 48 inches off this wall. This range is 30 inches wide. That's kind of like the standard size for your typical slide-in range. We also want to find out, is there any kind of ventilation? This particular kitchen has a microwave over top. So we just make a note there that we have a microwave exhaust hood combo. Okay, the next step is we're going to locate where the kitchen sink is at. We have the refrigerator, the range, the microwave included in this design now. So now we need to locate where the sink is at. Okay, here we've located the sink. The drain lines, they go under the sink to a floor drain there. That's very important to note where these drains go. Sometimes they'll go back in a wall, and if you want to put a Lazy Susan in, you won't have room to do that. And then of course, another appliance is this dishwasher here. Okay, one thing to remember is the ceiling height in a kitchen. That'll tell you how high your appliances and your cabinets and everything can go. This is 107. Also to help you out with your lighting layout. But generally I just make a note on the plans that the ceiling height is 107 inches. Okay, so we've got a pantry over in this area and some additional cabinets. I'm just going to locate all of this on this drawing here. About 50 inches over. This space we measured at 48. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is when we're looking at the pantry side, That has a secondary, like a prep sink in that location. Also, the soffit is lower and we have some plumbing over there. But when we're doing that, we need to make notes of where things are located, because part of our thinking in this design is we're going to take out all the walls where that pantry's at. And there's a second floor above this area. So taking walls out, when you have a second floor above, we now need to think about holding up the second floor and what's involved with doing that. Okay, so I'm just going to note on here where we have a prep sink and where the waste lines are going on this one. Well, more than likely, when I see that and knowing there's a second floor above, you see how that fits perfectly inside the wall? More than likely, there's a drain or a vent inside that wall. So figuring out where the plumbing fixtures are is super important when you're thinking you're taking out walls. Particularly, the customer has asked, if possible, they would like to take out all of these walls and really open up this space, including this one. And this wall is the kicker, because this wall is probably supporting the second floor that comes across here. Possibly these walls also, but definitely this one. And it probably has a plumbing stack in it. This would be a drain. There is a bathroom upstairs. So this would be like a 3-inch line that comes down the wall. And also this plumbing fixture here is tied into it. The way to find out if that's true is I had the homeowner go upstairs and flush the toilet in that bathroom. And you just stand at this location and listen. And if you hear the water going down the wall, you know that there's a stack in that wall for this location here. And we did that, and I do hear the water in there. So we have to figure that out and accommodate that in our design. Okay, the final part of this phase is to kind of figure out where we are going to put the new sink and island, because the idea is we're removing this whole section here, and we'd like to have a nice island located right through here. But generally speaking, I just start putting in dotted or dashed lines. I usually want to be about 48 inches off of a refrigerator. So I'm just going to throw a line in here that represents 48 inches off of this refrigerator. And then on a wall where there is a range, minimum is 42 inches. So I'm just going to put that 42-inch line in here. So now you can see that, to me, this is 48, this is 42. And as we get out into this walkway space here through this door, we probably don't want to be too far out into this opening. That actually needs to be more like this. So if I look at this kitchen, this island, 36 inches is pretty good. That would be cabinets with a row of cabinets on the back. That makes a nice size island at 36 inches wide. You can see that almost perfectly lines up with this opening here. And since this would all be gone, there's plenty of space to walk around and get over to this other side. We do want to leave room over here for a table, but we do usually leave about 7 feet for that. So now we have just kind of figured out our island size, which would be about 7.5 feet. And in here, we're going to move the sink over to this area, the dishwasher. We will need to bring power into this island for those things. And obviously busting up the floor and moving this drain line over. Okay, so this should give you a really idea of what's involved with laying out a kitchen when you want to take walls out, what we go through to kind of get a game plan together. This drawing will be taken back to our office. We'll put it on the computer, and then we can move things around and see what works flow-wise. But this is an initial layout. I generally go over this with a customer in their house to give them an idea of what I'm thinking. Without this drawing, I don't think most people could visualize what we're actually thinking we may do in their home. And right up front, the first meeting, we're able to get a good idea if they think this is a good design, what issues we may run into, like the plumbing in the wall that we just talked about. Also need to really remember about your lighting. The layout for the lighting is important. So don't forget about that in your design. For more information on bath and kitchen remodeling, go to tampakitchenandbath.com.